Yeah, the purpose of this amendment is to put more solid terms of reference in the periodic reviews. Really, it's about specifying progress towards achievement of annual targets, interim targets and the 2050 target. And I suppose the reason why we're putting this down again, or there's a certain semblance of déjà vu about this, is that the terms of reference for the reviews are really practically non-existent in the bill as it stands. There's no references to targets, so really the reviews might as well not be conducted at all. They're kind of purposeless unless you have a starting point, and I think especially as the National Transition Objective, that is the current reference point for the content of the review, isn't fleshed out in any detail in the bill. So if you don't know what your starting point is, how do you know what you're reviewing, and how do you know the goal that you're ultimately trying to get to? The purpose of this amendment is to give some actual purpose and weight to the reviews that we have stated are so important for the advisory body to carry out. So when we went into a big discussion about who'd make up the advisory committee, the nature of their independence and so on, we haven't given adequate input into what their objectives are, and what this amendment really seeks to make the terms of reference of the periodic reviews a little bit, well, a bit more substantial and relevant than the nothingness that exists at the moment. Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, I think this is actually a really important amendment, because when we're talking about where we're going or where we want to go, we have to take account of where we've come from. And what this amendment seeks to do is put specific reference on possible contributions from different sectors of the economy and different sources of emissions. And I think that's actually critical because of the fact that performance is uneven at the moment. And if you look at the European Commission report that was done into Ireland earlier this year, I think it graphically makes the point and really sells out why we need to specify the different areas, because that report stated in terms of agricultural emissions in Ireland that they were expected to remain stable between 2005 and 2020. But though that was technically accurate, the statement glossed over the fact that the agricultural greenhouse gas emissions had fallen by 9% by 2011 and were now increasing again because of food harvest 2020 due to the expansion of livestock numbers, especially dairy cattle, which meant that emissions were already up 4% in the last 2 years, and emissions were predicted to rise up to 2025. So I think clearly that's one sector of the economy. I think the report dealt with the whole area of emissions in transport, which again we're trying to specify here. They stated in that report the transport, the second largest non-emissions trading system sector in terms of emissions, are expected to increase significantly between 2005 and 2020 due to the lack of public transport. That hasn't been addressed. It looks at the continuing use of coal and increased domestic peat use that has meant that domestic heat carbon emissions rose by 2.6% in 2013 over 2012 levels. So with no strategy in place to achieve high levels of household insulation and so on that would deal with this and allow a switch from coal over to low carbon and so on. So we do need to specify by sector. I think it's really important, and it contributes actually to a more bottom-up and meaningful approach to this. I think it's absolutely critical that we would do that, and it feeds into the other discussion we had about who decides about this, and I think it's much more democratic and accountable to specify it in the bill. So.